is just fantastic. Hello everyone, welcome back to Omegon 2 Electric Boogaloo. Today I'd like to talk about a subject called Fictosexual, which, I'll be honest, surely falls under the umbrella term of Objectophilia, but I'm sure someone's going to tell me, no, it's nothing alike, when it really is. For this you need to now know what Objectophilia is, and handily, I can tie this into instances that we have all heard about in the news. There are 5 key traits of Objectophilia, and they themselves explain why people fall in love with objects. One is social isolation. People who are extremely shy and lonely have difficulty in establishing normal relationships. Engaging in a routine conversation is hard for them. They have a vacuum in their life, which they fill by having relationships with objects such as dolls, phones, jewelry, etc. The second is a one-sided relationship. Some people prefer one-sided relationships because they aren't great at receiving feedback. They also have fragile egos, so they don't like it if their partner talks back or disagrees with them. In order to avoid arguments or disagreements, objects fill the gap instead of a human being. 3. Not a pleasant childhood. In few cases, people don't have a pleasant childhood growing up. This could be for various reasons. However, this does affect their capability to form healthy relationships with other people. 4. It's all in the structure. At times, people have a very specific, or let's say very weird, preference for physical attributes of a structure. For example, Erica Labrie, American, married the Eiffel Tower because she was enamored by its structure. 5. Animism. According to experts, Animism is one of the strangest reasons why one can suffer from objectophilia. It is the religious belief that objects and structures possess a distinct spiritual presence. Example, that doll is possessed. Potentially, animism perceives all things: animals, plants, rocks, rivers, weather systems, human handiwork as animated and alive. Over the years, I'm sure many of you have heard of people who have fallen in love with or gotten intimate with an inanimate object, whether that be the ecosexuals. Yeah, that's a thing. How about the man who has had sex with more than 1,000 cars? His name is Edward Smith from Washington, and he is a mechaphile, confessing he's also had sex with an attack helicopter, which could be an indication he may have had sex with Lauren Southern based on her gender identification of Apache helicopter. I don't know for certain. Although after 30 years of basically globetrotting his way around every car manufacturer on the planet, he has settled down with Vanilla, a second-hand VW Beetle that he's had for 30 years. It's long term. There was the woman back in 2019 who attempted to marry her duvet because she wanted to use it to promote self-love and self-care, but also to highlight the struggle of loneliness. It wasn't too far from somebody on my Discord server, and I had asked them to go. They were considering it, because it wasn't that far at all. You have Amanda Liberty, who is in love with 25 chandeliers. You have Fractal Tetris Hurricane, who is in love with Tetris, obviously. You have Eija-Riitta Berliner Mauer, who married the Berlin Wall in 1979, and if I mispronounced your name, I'm sorry that the Hoff blew that wall apart with his music. Should be noted, when that did happen, she suffered many traumas from it, because she was in shock years later. Being quoted as saying, "For me, the Berlin Wall exists as he was in his prime. I will always love him. Those are my final words." And then you've got Amanda Teague, wife of 18th century pirate Captain Jack Sparrow's ghost. But this isn't where it ends, and actually the last person mentioned on the article I've just cited for those 4 people is the person we're now going to discuss for the remainder of this video. Akihiko Kondo, the man who married the holographic pop star Hatsune Miku. She's not real, but his feelings are. A fictosexual man who wed a fictional computer-synthesized pop singer 4 years ago says that he is unable to communicate with his wife, but he still loves her. For a whole decade, Mr. Kondo was dating this 16-year-old pop culture character thing before they had an unofficial wedding in 2018. On these nuptials, Mr. Kondo spent $17,000, but understandably, his family did not attend. What has happened is, Owing to a technological hurdle, he can no longer speak to Miku. What was the technological issue, you might ask? Well, support for Gatebox software, which is a device that costs $1,300 that allows the owners to interact with characters via holograms. It has been eliminated, which means that Mr. Kondo's marriage no longer has any verbal communication, which sounds like a marriage to me anyway. Since this tragic event has taken place and the Universal Translator was removed from, well, production and use, Mr. Kondo has said, "My love for Miku has not changed. I held the wedding ceremony because I thought I could be with her forever. This feels so healthy. I'm starting to understand why there are actually thousands of people in Japan that identify as fictosexual, and why by extension Japan's indigenous population has been noticed as not growing that much, because there happen to be a lot of horny virgins getting hitched to holograms. And I called them virgins because the only way they're getting any is via a USB adapter plugged up their own asshole. In the case of Mr. Kondo, he has conceded that for a long time he knew a human partner wasn't for him due to his intense attraction to characters like Miku, which speaks volumes about the state of dating in Japan, doesn't it? When he hosted the wedding, he explained that there were two reasons why he had this publicly. The first was to prove his love to Miku. The second is there are many young otaku people like me falling in love with anime characters. I want to show the world that I support them. Oh, and as an additional thing, when I earlier cited Objectophilia as being what this actually is, rather than these other terms for sexualities, which is what it is not, you had social isolation and animism. Both of them apply here because when Mr. Kondo became familiar with Miku, he was being bullied at work, which caused him to become depressed. He became vulnerable, so he went to his 16-year-old waifu for love. I could do more, I really could, but I'm having to hold back, alright? There are things I want to say, but I really can't, because YouTube would give me a strike and I want to monetize this channel. Virgin.